Diablo 4 has been an amazing journey so far. Dark as it is, I find myself constantly torn in a moral battle. You would imagine that a story of the high heavens versus the burning hell would be quite clear-cut, and that the only difficulty wouldn't lie in the choices made, but rather in the fights themselves. Somehow, the world of Diablo 4 has managed to muddy those waters, leaving fans divided about the decisions they've made as the protagonist and who the real villains are. No two characters bring this issue to light more than the angel Inarius and the demon Lilith. Time and time again, I witness comment sections and threads filled with discussions pinning these two against each other. Some fans claiming that Lilith is misunderstood, while others believe that Inarius is the closest we can find in this series to true good. Which of the two of them holds the moral high ground is an interesting question, and one that I hope to dive much deeper into today. Let's begin with the history of Inarius and Lilith. Both prolific warriors to their respective sides, they find themselves locked in many battles. Inarius recounts on several occasions that the glory of war and even his victories began to diminish with the understanding that this war would never end. This is not something his commander, Archangel Tyrell, could understand. For him, the idea of a never-ending war filled with glorious battles was welcomed, and Inarius became isolated in his thoughts, continuing to fight in a war he did not believe in, and as expected, his apathy would eventually lead even him to defeat. To his surprise, Inarius found himself captured and brought down to the burning hells. He was surprised to be imprisoned rather than slain, but even more surprised to find that his views on the war were shared with one of his sworn enemies. That enemy, of course, was Lilith, the daughter of Mephisto. Over time, the two would become very close and go on to create Sanctuary, a place for both the evils of hell and the angels of heaven to live in peace away from the war. It was a risky plan from the beginning, as the archangels and prime evils could never learn of this place or it would be destroyed, along with them and all of the allies that they had gathered from both sides. A greater problem still would arrive for them, though, as they birthed the first Nephilim, which is a title for the child of angels and demons. The creation of these children was considered an unholy union from both sides, and was guaranteed to create a larger issue with archangels and prime evils who would not let such blasphemy stand. Worse still was the fact that these children had powers of their own, and the ramifications of their rising power was yet unknown. This revelation hit everyone differently, dividing the inhabitants of Sanctuary. Should the Nephilim be killed? Are they to be protected? Will they cause the destruction of Sanctuary one day, or even rise up against their parents? Up until this point, there has never been a need for conflict between Inarius and Lilith. Although they are opposing beings, they have been aligned on their deepest values. It was at this moment that their differences began to cause issue. Inarius, not wanting to rely on his feelings, calls for a period of reflection, where he would ponder on what should be done. Ignoring Inarius' call for reflection, Lilith, in fear for her children, opted to kill off all of the allies they had made. This was a preemptive strike against the possibility that some beings would take the easy road of killing their offspring. Amongst the bloodshed, Inarius was forced out of his time of reflection to deal with the situation. He did not want to kill Lilith, so instead, he banished her to the void and used the World Stone to diminish the power of the Nephilim. Over the ages, these Nephilim would evolve into mankind, a race that had forgotten its roots and its powers. Years elapse between this conflict and the current events of Diablo 4's gameplay, but they were not uneventful years. Lilith has escaped the void, only to rise up a following and be sent back before accomplishing her goals. Inarius was found guilty of rising up his own following, called the Cathedral of Light, and was captured by the heavens and handed off to Mephisto. Lilith's imprisonment and Inarius' torture have built tensions up over the years, and mankind will be the one to pay the price. Upon the summoning of Lilith back to the sanctuary in early game, she would like mankind to believe that she is returned as a nurturing mother. She doesn't claim to have ill will to anyone, and says she even wants to reignite their powers within them. Now, some of her statements do seem backed up by her actions. For example, she looks truly saddened by the loss of her son Rathma, who we will talk more about in a moment. Her genuine sorrow, as well as burning anger from the incident, indicates that she does in fact have the ability to love. If she could care this deeply for Rathma as a mother, then perhaps she really does care for Sanctuary as a whole. Regardless, it would be hard to say that her experience of deep emotions such as love is a good thing in the first place. Consider the lengths she has been willing to go for such emotions before. Murdering all of the allies that she accumulated in the case of the mere chance that they would attack her children. It seems to be a twisted version of love to me, but not half as twisted as how she treats the citizens that she calls her own children. She is summoned via human sacrifice. She inspires a mob of religious folk to kill their priest. She turns a mother against daughter and insists on human sacrifice for the sake of her cause. She is a mother to a people she has tormented. She is a daughter to a prime evil that she wishes to kill for her own ends. And she was a lover to an angel that she would eventually destroy. I understand that there are moments that we as an audience can relate to her. However, this doesn't make her good or redeemable. We can sympathize with her in the moment she grieves for Rathma. We can ponder whether her particular brand of evil is lesser of the two, but I do not think we can believe her statement that she is here to save Sanctuary from a greater evil yet. Regardless of the visions of Diablo that she puts in our protagonist's mind, she is no savior. Her purpose, even if she stopped a greater evil, is not to save anyone, but rather to rule. At least, this is what all of the evidence would suggest. It is hard to say your deepest desire is to save a group of people from destruction, while simultaneously requiring them to destroy each other. You may be asking, however, what about Inarius? If Lilith is the villain of the story, then he must clearly be the depiction of good. Unfortunately, this is not the case. Inarius fits the title of fallen angel very well, as he has allowed himself to slip further and further from his purpose. As an archangel, Inarius was set apart from most angels, glorious, powerful, and the leader of many a battle. However, he was more set apart by his mindset than strength. The defining point to be remembered about Inarius was his desire to end the war, and that is an honorable endeavor. As noble a start as that may have been, however, in the end, he fathered a new nation, only to once again bring them to war with each other. Let me begin by giving respect where it is due. When a decision needed to be made about the Nephilim, he acted wisely, seeking time to come to a rational decision rather than act upon an instinct that he should not trust. However, in the end, all for the sake of returning to his former glory, he was willing to kill his own son, Rathma, rise an army and march them to their death, and even attempt to kill the mother of it all. There is moral ambiguity in this game. For example, killing Lilith does seem to be the right thing to do. But the sad story of Inarius is that he died leading an army to their deaths when his defining desire was to end war in the first place. I have really enjoyed the discussion back and forth about Inarius and Lilith, but I believe that the underlying answer is that both are deeply flawed. It's not as simple as saying that Inarius is the clear moral victor, simply because angels are a classic depiction of good. It is also not as easy as taking Lilith at her word and accepting that the ends justify the means, especially when the cost is that of human lives. There are redeeming qualities in both of them, but better still, I would say, is that both are deeply flawed. That is what makes this story so interesting after all. We have these two massively powerful and influential character archetypes, and yet, in their imperfections, we are able to relate to them enough to spark this conversation in the first place. No matter which side you are on, thank you for watching, being part of the conversation. What do you think of these characters? Let me know down in the comments. And if you enjoyed the video, consider subscribing for more content just like this. That's all for now. I'll see you in the next video.